My name is Arthur Whitmore. I am 88 years old. And after nearly 9 decades of watching the world change, I've noticed something strange. The more comfortable life becomes, the more restless people seem to feel. We have faster machines, smarter technology, and more convenience than any generation in history. Yet people today seem more exhausted than ever. It took me almost my entire life to understand why. And the answer surprised me. Because the thing we believed would make life better might be the very thing quietly making it worse. Let me tell you a story. For a long time, I thought the problem was stress, or maybe the economy, or the endless responsibilities modern life seems to pile onto people. But the more I watched the world, the more something didn't add up. Life today is easier than it has ever been. Machines wash our clothes. Cars take us everywhere. Computers finish work in seconds that once took hours. Most every inconvenience our grandparents faced has quietly disappeared. And yet, people seem more anxious than ever, more restless, more tired. At first, I couldn't understand it. Because when I was young, life was much harder. Things took time. Sometimes a lot of time. But strangely enough, those were the years that felt the most alive. Let me take you back to the town where I grew up. I grew up in a small town in Vermont, a quiet place surrounded by forests and low hills. Back then, the world moved much slower. There were no smartphones, no endless notifications, no invisible algorithms deciding what deserved our attention. Most mornings began in silence. The sun would rise slowly over the hills, spilling light across the town. Windows opened, coffee brewed, and the day unfolded at its own pace. You could hear birds in the trees, a screen door opening somewhere down the street, sometimes the distant rumble of a truck starting its engine. Nothing felt rushed. Back then, even the smallest tasks required patience. If something broke, you didn't replace it. You fixed it. If you wanted to talk to a friend who lived far away, you wrote a letter. And then you waited. Sometimes for days, sometimes for weeks. But that waiting never felt like a burden. In a strange way, it made the moment matter more. Life wasn't efficient, but it felt full. I remember one evening very clearly. I must have been 8 years old. The sun had already set, and the kitchen was lit by a single yellow lamp. My father sat down at the table and placed something in front of me. An old pocket watch. The metal case was scratched. The glass was slightly cloudy with age, and the hands had stopped moving. The watch was broken. I remember asking him what we were going to do with it. He said something simple. We're going to fix it. Not buy a new one. Fix it. He opened the back of the watch, and tiny pieces of metal appeared inside. Little gears, small springs, parts so delicate they almost looked impossible to touch. We sat there together for hours, carefully turning screws, adjusting tiny gears, trying to understand how everything fit together. At one point, I looked up at him and said, "Why don't we just buy another watch?" He smiled. Not the kind of smile adults give when they think a child is wrong, but the kind of smile that knows something the child doesn't yet understand. Then he said something that stayed with me for the rest of my life. Because fixing things teaches you patience. At the time, I didn't fully understand what he meant. But many years later, I realized something. Moments like that were quietly shaping how we experienced life. Back then, almost everything required his effort. Walking to school, helping around the house, waiting for letters to arrive in the mail. Nothing happened instantly. If you wanted to talk to a friend who lived far away, you wrote a letter, and then you waited. Sometimes for days, sometimes for weeks. But that waiting did something people rarely experience today. It made the moment meaningful. When the letter finally arrived, you didn't glance at it for 3 seconds and move on with your day. You sat down. You read every word slowly, sometimes more than once. Life wasn't efficient, but it had a rhythm to it, a natural pace that people rarely question when they're living inside it. And the interesting thing is, no one back then believed life was perfect. In fact, most people would have told you the opposite. Life was hard. Things took time, and many things were inconvenient. But that effort gave ordinary moments a kind of weight. You felt present inside them. Years later, when I became an engineer, my entire job was to remove that effort. Years later, I became an engineer. My job was simple. Make machines faster, reduce wasted time, eliminate inefficiency. Factories loved that idea. If a machine could produce 10 parts an hour, we tried to make it produce 20. If a process took 5 minutes, we tried to reduce it to 2. Every improvement meant the same thing. More speed, more output, less waiting. At the time, it felt like progress. And to be fair, in many ways, it was. Life slowly became easier. Machines washed our clothes. Cars replaced long walks. Computers finished work in seconds that once took hours. Things that used to take an afternoon could suddenly happen instantly. And for a long time, I believed we were improving the world. But over time, something else began to change. At first, the changes were small, almost invisible. The same thinking we used for machines slowly started creeping into everyday life. People didn't just want efficiency at work. They wanted efficiency everywhere. Faster mornings, faster workouts, faster meals. Even rest became something to optimize. People began tracking their sleep, tracking their steps, tracking how productive every hour of the day was. At first, it all sounded reasonable. After all, who wouldn't want to improve their life? but slowly, almost without noticing, people stopped living their lives and started managing them. Moments became schedules. Experience became metrics. And hobbies, the things people once did purely for joy, quietly turned into another kind of task. Even relaxation began to feel like work. And that's when I began to realize something that made me deeply uncomfortable. The machines were becoming more efficient and slower. We were trying to become machines too. The real shift began quietly. At first, most people didn't even notice it. A new device appeared in everyone's pocket. A small glowing screen that could show you the entire world. Messages, news, videos, endless information arriving every second. Suddenly, waiting disappeared from life. You didn't wait for letters anymore. You didn't wait for answers. Everything arrived instantly. At first, people called it a connection. And in some ways, that was true. You could talk to someone on the other side of the planet in seconds. You could share a thought, a photo, a moment with hundreds of people at once. Human history had never seen anything like it. But slowly, something strange began to happen. People were communicating more than ever. Yet they were feeling more alone than ever. I remember a moment that made this painfully clear to me. It was a quiet afternoon. My grandson was visiting. He sat beside me on the living room couch, just a few feet away. But for almost 30 minutes, he never looked up. His eyes stayed fixed on the glowing screen in his hands. Once, he laughed, not at something in the room, but at something happening somewhere else. And in that moment, something felt deeply strange. Two people sitting side by side, yet somehow existing in completely different worlds. A few days later, I went for a walk in the park. It was a beautiful afternoon. Sunlight through the trees. Children playing in the distance. Benches were full of people. But almost every single person was looking down. Scrolling, tapping, swiping. Dozens of people connected to the entire world. Yet no one speaking to the person beside them. That was the moment a quiet realization settled in my mind. Technology had solved the problem of distance, but it had quietly created a new kind of absence. For a long time, I couldn't quite explain what was missing. The world looked more advanced than ever. Cities were brighter. Machines were smarter. Life was easier than anything my parents could have imagined. And yet, something felt lighter. Not lighter in a good way. Lighter in the sense that moments seemed to pass through people's lives without leaving much behind. I began noticing it in small ways. Conversations ended quicker. Meals became shorter. Even silence started to feel uncomfortable. Whenever a quiet moment appeared, someone would reach for a phone. Almost automatically. as if the mind had forgotten how to simply sit still. But the moment that truly changed how I saw things came after my wife passed away. Eleanor and I had been married for 46 years. Nearly half a century of shared mornings, shared dinners, shared ordinary days. After she was gone, the house became very quiet. At first, the silence felt heavy. But slowly, something unexpected happened. The quiet began revealing things. One morning, I opened an old wooden box in the bedroom closet. Inside were dozens of letters. Letters Eleanor had written to me when we were young, before we were married, before life became busy, before everything moved so fast. I sat by the window and began reading them. The handwriting was slightly uneven. The paper had yellowed with age. But the words felt incredibly alive. Each letter described small things. Walks she had taken that morning, a song she had heard on the radio, something funny her sister had said at dinner. Nothing dramatic, nothing extraordinary, just moments, ordinary moments carefully written down. Suddenly, I understood something that had been quietly hiding in front of me for years. The most meaningful parts of my life had never been the efficient ones. They were the dull ones, the inconvenient ones, the moments that required patience. Waiting for letters, walking home at sunset, sitting across a table from someone with nowhere else to be. Those moments had something modern life keeps trying to eliminate: friction. And strangely enough, that friction was exactly what made them matter. After reading those letters, I sat by the window for a long time. The house was completely quiet. No notifications, no messages, no endless stream of information asking for my attention. Just the wind outside and the soft ticking of the old clock on the wall. And that's when the truth finally became clear to me. Happiness was never hiding in convenience. It was hiding in the places modern life keeps trying to eliminate. In waiting, in effort, in the slow unfolding of ordinary moments. You see, machines are designed for efficiency. But human beings were never meant to live like machines. Minds need pauses. Our hearts need unplanned conversations. Our memories are built from moments that were never rushed. That's something I learned slowly over the course of 88 years. The moments people remember most in life are almost never the efficient ones. They're the long dinners where nobody checks the time. The walks that take longer than expected. The conversations that wander without a destination. The quiet evenings where nothing extraordinary happens, yet everything feels meaningful. Somewhere along the way, the modern world forgot something simple. Life is not a problem that needs to be optimized. It is an experience that needs to be lived. slowly. So, if there's one piece of advice an 88-year-old man can offer, it's this. Leave a little inefficiency in your life. Take the longer walk. Cook the slower meal. Sit with someone you care about without checking the time. Because one day, when you look back at your life, those are the moments that will still be there. And you may realize something most people discover far too late. The goal of life was never efficiency. It was persistence. The goal of life was never efficiency. It was presence. And maybe the most important moments of your life are not the ones you optimized. They're the ones you slowed down enough to truly experience. So tonight, put the phone down for a moment. Sit with someone you care about. Or simply sit with your own thoughts. Because life rarely happens when we're rushing through it. It happens in the moments we finally decide to slow down.